Prosecco. Welcome to the Grape Escape featuring Prosecco. Now, Prosecco is tasty, fun, flirtatious and fizzy. It's uncomplicated happiness and joy in your glass. It is one of the most popular sparkling wines coming from or made around the world, and actually produces Italy produces over 600 million bottles per year, which tops champagne. So they must be doing something right, because people around the world are clearly loving what is Prosecco. You can drink Prosecco in Benedetto, or you can drink Prosecco at home. That's what makes it so beautiful. Prosecco is found in aperitivos, it's drunk during meals, it's mixed with cocktails, it's drunk at sunsets. I mean, it's drunk on your deck in summer. It's delicious on its own or with food. So it's a really good sparkling wine to get into, and often an introductory sparkling wine into the whole plethora of sparkling wine that is on offer from the wine world. Now, if Prosecco was a person, she would be the most dazzling, flirtatious woman alive. The party starter, the brunch maker, the most dashing companion to a spritzer or cocktail, a supper club regular, and the most beautiful and amazing sort of pairing to a gorgeous sunset at Bethel's Beach or Piha, take your pick. So a sparkling diva, much like Mariah Carey, who actually once in an interview was asked, so what's your sort of go-to drink? And she said Prosecco. The journalist looked at her and said, so anything else or just Prosecco? She said, just Prosecco. So that is ironic actually, because Prosecco is just Prosecco. It's simple, it's all you need for a little bit of fun, and it's one of it is Mariah Carey's go-to sparkling wine, and I, for one, am a big fan of Mariah Carey. Now, does pure sort of whimsical, flirtatious, fun with a price tag that doesn't make you feel guilty excite you? If yes, then a Prosecco is for you. So what is Prosecco? Is it a grape? Is it a wine? Is it a place? Is it a name? Well, actually all of the above. The reason for that is because in 2009, Prosecco was a name of a grape. But the Italians noticed their competitors in the New World, i.e. the naughty, cheeky Australians, were starting to make Prosecco and calling it Prosecco. So in order to sort of protect Prosecco's reputation, the Italians sought legal protection for the name Prosecco by rechristening the grape's name to Glera, which is what it is now known to this day, is that Prosecco is made from the Glera grape. To be totally correct, Prosecco is, or it must be, 85% made out of Glera, and the 15% can be other native grapes or grapes like Chardonnay that we all know very well. But just be safe, just say Prosecco is made from Glera. Now, Prosecco is also a place. In fact, it came from a small little town in the province of Trieste, which borders on Slovenia. And the word Prosecco comes from the Slovenian, that's a bit of a tongue twister, the Slovenian word Prozek, P-R-O-Z-E-K, which actually means, well, not actually means, it does mean a walk through the woods, which is quite ironic, I thought, because if you walk through the woods in spring, or you walk through a beautiful meadow going into woods, you're going to be smelling things like white flowers, lilies, honeysuckle. You might even come across a melon or two, who knows, but it goes quite well with the whole taste and flavors of what is Prosecco. So nowadays, Prosecco spans production over two sort of regions in northeast Italy, spanning 9 different provinces. This Prosecco, which we're going to talk about later, comes from Treviso, which is also in the sort of wider region of Veneto, which, to put it easily for you to understand in your head where it all is, if you imagine Venice, and we all know Venice with the beautiful sort of canals and food and wine and coming together of people for the food and wine. If you go or hop into your car and you drive north, sort of north, never eat silkworms, northwestish a little bit, but more so north, you'll come across, or you'll come into there'll be a day in there. Italians, please correct my pronunciation if I'm wrong. But that is the sort of the heart and the soul of Prosecco production in Italy. So yes, Prosecco is a wine too. Whether a white sparkling wine, nowadays you can also have a rosé Prosecco, much to the delight of rosé all-day lovers. And so Prosecco has really enthralled us as a global sort of audience. In actual fact, it's been sort of causing waves and gaining street cred since the ancient Roman times, when an empress called Julia Augustus actually sort of owed a loving farewell to Prosecco at her 86th year of being on this earth. And to live for 86 years in the Roman times was quite a feat. And she said it was all to do with drinking Prosecco. So Prosecco is made using the Jemma method, aka the tank method, which sets itself apart immediately from champagne. Why do we use the tank method, or why do the Italians use the tank method to make Prosecco? Well, if you look at the grape, Grape, it's a very aromatic grape. And it would be such a shame to put it through the process that champagne grapes like Pinot Meunier, Chardonnay, Pinot Noir go through to make champagne. Champagne undergoes a second fermentation in a bottle, which sort of allows and encourages the flavors of brioche and nuttiness and toastiness, and like walking into a patisserie in France, to come through in the final product in the champagne. Whereas with Grape and with using the grape Grape, you really want to sort of hold in those beautiful aromatic qualities of sort of crunchy peach, white pear, honeysuckle, lilies, sort of melon, citrus, maybe even a bit of like yellow apple. You want to keep those all from grape to glass, which is why they use the tank or the Jemma method to produce Prosecco. So what this does, it retains all those aromatic aromas which we want in Prosecco. We don't want a Prosecco tasting all toasty and nutty and layered and complex like we do champagne. And another bonus about this is that's why Prosecco is way more cheaper than champagne. It's because the actual production process costs less to make, and therefore Prosecco is valued less than champagne. But that does not mean on any level that it's drunk less than champagne. As we can see, 600 million bottles a year. So this is why the Italians use the Jemma method. Now, if we think about, okay, what is a Jemma method, Jemma? Well, if you imagine the natural, well, not really the natural, but the base wine that we're making. So imagine a still wine made from Grape grapes, maybe chuck a few 15% of other grapes in, who knows? Let's just call it Grape. So that sits in a tank. Now what happens is it undergoes another fermentation. And what is fermentation? Fermentation is a process that we all love that makes alcohol. It's sugar plus yeast, which equals carbon dioxide and alcohol, what we love. Okay, so what they do is they, instead of leaving the wine to ferment with the top of the fermentation tank's sort of lid open to release the carbon dioxide, which is the bubbles that we love in Prosecco, they close the lid, keeping all that carbon dioxide inside. Then what they do is they filter the wine through, when it's very, very cold, goes through a cold sort of stabilization and filtration process, which then leads to bottling with the carbon dioxide present in the bottle. And that is the tank method. So it's basically a grander scale of making sparkling wine. So next up, let's talk about old world labels. Because when I walk in, or when I used to walk into a wine shop, this is what I want you to be able to do now, is differentiate between all these old world labels. It's not like walking into a wine shop that sells New Zealand wines where it says the producer, the grape and the vintage. No, it's got things like DOC and DOC CG on it, and it's got these regions you never heard of. It hasn't got the grapes, so you're supposed to know what grapes are grown in each region. It really, really, really gets complicado. So to understand what's actually in the bottle, here's a few tips to help you distinguish which wines are better than others using the quality system that they use in Italy. Something which is called, and I hope I get the pronunciation right, the Denominazione d'origine controllata. My friend Val will be able to help me with the pronunciation. Anyway, I just know it as the DOC system, the DOC system. And you can find this on the bottleneck of the wine, like you can see on this Prosecco. It's a DOC. And you can also sometimes find it on the actual label, the back label of the wine. Now this tells us three things. Number one, it tells us where the wine was made. Number two, it tells us how the wine was made. And both of these are basically regulated and controlled by the government that has said sort of what grapes you're allowed to grow, how long you can age things for, the whole process of making it. It stipulates all of this. It's quite strict, and I believe it's a great sort of method or way of controlling quality in a wine that comes from Italy. They also have the system of control in places like Spain and France. So it's a very good thing to know to sort of pinpoint the wines of quality made in Italy. Imagine a triangle. At the bottom, we've got sort of the table wines. Then we've got IGT, which is the Indicazione Geografica Tipica. Let's forget about those two. We're only going to go right to the top, because I'm showing you now how to taste and buy the top wines from Italy. So we're going to focus on the DOC and the DOCG, which is right on the top of the quality triangle. The DOC is Denominazione d'Origine Controllata, and then the DOCG, Denominazione, I think I got it this time, the Origine Controllata Garantita. So the DOCG basically means that all the wines go through what I just spoke about being regulated on what is produced, how it's produced. But these DOCG wines also undergo a taste test to get the DOCG certified. So basically, any wine that is DOCG is superior. There's one region in the whole of Veneto or Prosecco production which is given the DOCG, and that is Conegliano Valdobbiadene, which is superior quality Prosecco. And in Valdobbiadene, you can also make Prosecco in the way that champagne is made. But this is an exception, and I won't go into it because I don't want to confuse you. We're just going to keep it simple today and talk about, we're going to really talk about some DOC Prosecco. So use this to find the good stuff. Stay away from the mediocre Proseccos that if you had to give to an Italian, they'd laugh at you and then they wouldn't even wash their boots off with it. So drink right, drink good, drink quality. It's good for you. And to help you with this, I found a producer which has fast become one of my favorite producers that has a plethora of Prosecco and sparkling wine on offer, and still wine as well, a nice cheeky Pinot Grigio, which we'll get into when we talk about Pinot Gris and Pinot Grigios. But they really have an offering for every palate. Let's talk about Bedin, which is where this bottle's from. So Bedin is a producer in Veneto. In the early 1900s, great-grandfather Giovanni Bedin started growing vines, raising them like they were his children. Now, vines in Veneto at that time actually shared the land with mulberry bushes, which were used to feed the silkworms, which is quite interesting. Today it is run by great-grandchildren, Enrico, Luigi, Dennis and Damiano. I love those Italian names. So they've turned it from a farm into a celebrated sort of modern winery, while remaining faithful to their great-grandfather's sort of core philosophy about growing the vines and sort of celebrating the history of Prosecco. Because as you've learned now, it's got quite a rich history, especially going back to the ancient times. So the only thing it excludes is the mulberry bushes, although I'm sure there's one or two mulberry bushes around. So with just over 40 hectares of grapes, of course, not mulberry bushes, the Bedin family produce an array of still and sparkling wines, both DOC and DOCG quality. So they only produce the two of the highest standard wines that you get in Italy, which is another reason why I like them. You won't be drinking anything that I don't love on this channel, let me tell you that. So have a browse to see which one sort of tickles your fancy. They're all available on my website, jemma.co.nz, and Jemma with a J, so jemma.co.nz. and see which one you like. So whether you love a sort of a traditional classical dry Prosecco, maybe a sparkling rosé, there's one there for you. There's also mini 200ml versions, which are great for taking on picnics or taking away on boats when you go fishing. There's nothing better than catching a kingfish or trevally and drinking a cheeky celebratory 200ml bottle of Prosecco. And there's also the Elive, which was one of our wine club favorites. It's a natural wine, a pet nat, made from all the native varieties, including Glera. Well, not all the native varieties, it's hundreds and thousands of them, but I think there's 4 or 5 native varieties, including Glera, in the Elive, and it's a beautiful pet nat. Just thinking of it makes me lick my lips. And there's also a sparkling Merlot, which is like a really bashful, strawberries jumping out the glass, sort of sweet sparkling wine, which my sweeter wine drinking friends like Barbara will love. And then there's also one very serious, highest quality DOCG Superior Prosecco. So basically, Bedin offers a Prosecco to sort of enjoy, whether you're looking for something dry, something sweet, whether you're looking for a natural wine, whether you're looking for a pet nat, aka natural wine, whether you're looking for a sparkling Merlot. And as I said, they also do a really banging Pinot Grigio, which you should try. So for today, I'm going to talk about one of my favorites, and I do like my Proseccos dry, in fact, extra dry. So that's this one. So this is the sort of the classical string quartet Prosecco from Bedin. It's the Prosecco DRC from Treviso, which is the sub-region in Veneto. It's extra dry. It's got this like honeysuckle grapey sweetness on the palate I love, while remaining a dry wine, which is delicious for me for a Prosecco. So it offers the sort of truest expression of a Prosecco that you want. So think vivid sort of white crunchy peach, pear, yellow apple. Like I said, there's like a grapey sweetness on the palate. There's notes of honeysuckle. There's lots of white flowers. It smells like lilies in spring. So it's got this lovely bright acidity that I love too. And it's very refreshing. I've had it before meals. I've had it during meals. And did you know that before champagne made the Bellini, it was actually Prosecco that made the Bellini? And my first taste of Bellinis was in the Essex sunshine with my friend Daisy. We had lots of Bellinis in this sort of English meadow in the middle of nowhere, and it was a great day, as you can imagine. Just woke up with a bit of a headache the next morning. But yeah, drink this wine on its own. Drink it with sushi or seafood. To be honest, just drink it the way you like to drink it. I'm a firm believer in telling you not what to drink, but giving you options to drink so you can find the wines you love and the styles of wines you love. And that's it from me today. So this is the Bedin DRC Treviso Extra Brut. Check out my website for more offerings from the Bedin producer. They're a great family producer that have been operating for centuries now. And I love sort of giving a platform for these producers to sort of share their wares with the world. And thank you for joining. See you next time.